This is the most in-depth one, David. Someone brought this up earlier. Before I look at the Gnostic source, I want to look at Irenaeus in Against Heresies, Book 1, Chapter 24, Section 4, talking about this. And this is regarding Basilides. This is a heretic who was prior to Irenaeus. But this is Irenaeus writing about a Gnostic teacher prior to him. Listen to him explain these beliefs. This is fascinating. He did not himself suffer death, but Simon, a certain man of Cyrene, being compelled, bore the cross in his stead, so that this latter, being transfigured by him, that he might be thought to be Jesus, was crucified through ignorance and error, while Jesus himself received the form of Simon, and standing by, laughed at him. For since he was in incorporeal power, and the nous, mind, that's Greek word for mind, of the unborn Father, he transfigured himself as he pleased, and thus ascended to him who had sent him, deriding them, inasmuch as he could not be laid hold of, and was invisible to all. So there, Irenaeus is describing the Gnostic transforming Jesus. Now, he continues on here, describing the heretic's beliefs, because Irenaeus was a heresiologist, an apologist who specialized in these heretics and had polemics against them. But the Father without birth and without name, perceiving that they would be destroyed, sent his own first begotten nous, he it is who is called Christ, to bestow deliverance on them that believe in him from the power of those that made the world. So Irenaeus is accurately describing the Gnostic impulse to want to be free from the material world by belief in this Gnostic Christ. Understand? He appeared then on earth as a man to the nations of these powers and wrought miracles, wherefore he did not himself suffer death. I mean, my goodness, some of this shows up in the Quran, doesn't it?
Shabir Ali, in his debates, brings this up. The way he tells it is, there were even early Christians who thought that perhaps people accidentally crucified Simon of Cyrene. And he says, so this shows that even the early Christians were in doubt about Jesus' crucifixion. And he, of course, leaves out the part where, no, there was a reason that they were forced, that some people were forced by their theology to deny the crucifixion of Jesus. And it's not something that can help Islam.
I mean, I could see somebody really being deceptive and being like, look, Irenaeus, he didn't think Jesus was crucified, because he's describing someone else's beliefs.
Shabir's too smart to do something like that. But one of the regular Dawa guys, they would look at that and go, oh, look, it said right there, Jesus, he wasn't even crucified yet.
Oh, that sounds like Ali Nawa, I see. Yeah. So now we move on to the second treatise of Great Seth. This is a Gnostic text as well. And it's part of the Nag Hammadi library. It's second little tractate in Codex 7. And it's in Coptic, but usually they think it came from a Greek original. And this one is preserved entirely. It's clear. And likely Alexandrian provenance, that means Egyptian origin, around 200 AD. And when you look at this, it presents this docetic crucified Jesus. And I want to read this and explain how this shows up in the Quran. Here's the second treatise of Great Seth from the Nag Hammadi, which is a Gnostic library. I was not affected at all, yet I did not die in solid reality, but in what appears, in order that I not be put to shame by them. That's interesting. Another, their father, was the one who drank the gall and the vinegar. It was not I. This is Jesus talking, by the way. Another was the one who lifted up the cross on his shoulder, who was Simon. So this is like the Shaggy song. It wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
Another was the one on whom they put the crown of thorns. But I was rejoicing in the height over all the riches of the archons and the offspring of their error and their conceit. By the way, what he's saying there, Jesus, is when he talks about the offspring of their error and their conceit, he's talking about the physical world, understand? And I was laughing at their ignorance. And there you see the contrast between the ignorant people who don't get it and the Gnostics who are the exclusive wise club. Continuing on with the Gnostic second treatise of Great Seth, I visited a bodily dwelling. Now, talk about destroying the incarnation. David, in the Quran, it likes to downgrade the incarnation in a different way. But it's interesting. That's always an interest of the devil, is to destroy the incarnation. And this one, they've got Jesus saying, I visited a bodily dwelling. I cast out the one who was in it previously, and I went in. What? War of the Worlds, invasion of the body snatchers? Whoa. And the whole multitude of the archons was disturbed. And all the physical matter of the archons, along with the powers born of the earth, began to tremble when it saw the likeness of the image, since it was mixed. This weird hybrid of pure kind of mental energy and wisdom, Phantasm Jesus guy, and some kind of physical element. They're like, what is this? We ain't ever seen this before. And I was the one who was in it, not resembling the one who was in it previously, for he was a worldly man, but I am from above the heavens. I did not refuse them on the one hand, and I became the Christ. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as a side point, yes, we are attacking the Quran's veracity here. No doubt about that. But we're also exposing the lie of these Gnostic texts to you. Just sit back and relax and ask yourself, does this sound like it's based in history? Does this sound anything like the historical accounts of the Gospels, which are entirely sober and grounded in reality and real events and happenings that even get mentioned by Josephus and Tacitus and Suetonius and on and on and on? No, it doesn't, because it ain't.
This is common in the Gnostic sources. Like, it was crazy when they came out with that lost Gospel of Judas, and like it's this it's this
word
big thing.
Salad.
Yeah, and you open it up, and it's like, and I, through the pleroma of the archons, visited the 17th emanation. I was like, this sounds like a first century Jew writing this to you guys, like this, right here, and the archons of this and that. And it's like, this sounds like a Jewish carpenter saying this, guys.
Handy Tool Boy, great point. He says, this sounds like bad fanfic. You nailed it.
Exactly. The Gnostic stuff sounds like messed up fan fiction, but the Quran also sounds like messed up fan fiction. In fact, that guy, what's his name? Musa Sarantonio. He was a convert to Islam, and he was a recruiter for jihadis in Australia. He got locked up, but apparently he's one of those guys that can learn languages almost like very, very quickly. Like, he can pick up languages. Which is why, like, people were saying, like, his Arabic was perfect and stuff. Like, shortly after converting, he's like speaking fluent Arabic and so on. But he learned like Aramaic and stuff like that, and then he was reading the legends of Alexander the Great in Aramaic and Syriac and stuff like that. He was like, it sounds exactly what the Quran says, and he left it. He left Islam, and he called the Quran, the story of Alexander the Great, he called it 7th century Alexander the Great fan fiction. And it's just funny.
Oh man. Oh, JD says, wish we could see your faces. That's what I was telling David. I was trying to set up in the show. I was like, yo, we need to have our faces. He's like, no, don't worry about it. But all right, let me get through these and we'll try to get our faces on the screen. Now let's go to the Coptic apocalypse of Peter. Sometimes called the Gnostic apocalypse of Peter, and sometimes it's even called the revelation of Peter.